Hello everyone, my name is David and I am making this first video ever on YouTube as a way to share some of the thoughts I've been having in the past 6 months. I'm still getting used to looking at the camera and not at the screen and talking to myself alone to my laptop. It's not natural, but this is a new thing I'm trying to pick up and we'll see how it goes. But the reason I'm making this video is because I wanted to experiment with this kind of raw, unfiltered format of sharing ideas. I've been just having so many ideas in my head, and I thought, what better way to record it by literally recording it with my laptop or a camera of some sort, and then just posting it. I think, a lot of us have these ideas or cool things they want to share, but always feel kind of scared or unsure of actually posting it or sharing it with the fear of maybe being judged or being criticized, or what if it's not good? What if it's like stupid? What if it's cringe and I'm embarrassing myself? But it's all in your head. And I told myself this many times. And so now I'm actually doing it. So this is why I'm making this video. Another part as well is because I'm trying to treat this almost like a self-reflection, like kind of a journal where I get to share some things I've learned, some things, some mistakes I've made, things I would like to do, some ideas I have. And I kind of, try this out and see. I've seen some very successful people do it. Some people do it with Twitter or X, YouTube, streaming. Ultimately, I think, we all have stuff. We all have a story to share. We all have things we want to make and create and do cool things. So why not just post it and see what happens, and then maybe inspire or give ideas to others. So I'm by no means a guru. I don't want to, be those guys that tell you like, oh, do this, do that. If you want to be like me, just take what you want. And if you like something out of it, just let me know and maybe I can expand on this. But I have no structure. Okay, I was meditating right before this. I have my green tea here, which helps me kind of become more relaxed. And then hopefully my thoughts become a bit clearer. My head becomes clear, and so I can formulate my ideas better. But I just wrote some ideas after meditating and just some things I wanted to share. So I guess we can dive into it. For those of you who don't know me, and I'm pretty sure it's the majority of you guys, this is my first video. I'm studying architecture at MIT. I started 6 months ago. I'm doing a master's degree. Before that, I was doing architecture as well. My undergrad was in architecture, but at McGill. And I worked in a few design startups, a few firms here and there, which really taught me a lot about what it means to design, what it means to create and to think creatively and to be in a creative team. And now to be here at MIT and to study architecture is very fascinating. And it's only been 6-7 months, but my views on what design means, because in reality, when we say studying architecture is not necessarily just design or studying the design of buildings, which a lot of people think naturally that's what we do. But in reality, what we're doing is we're learning how to just design at large. And I think that's just MIT's, from what I've seen, is that their push is very holistic, which is very interesting, because we learn to basically to critique and to rethink everything around us. Because if you really think about it, and I can dive into what design means, maybe that's the first theme we go through. But design is basically the structure or the framework of the things or the elements around us. When you design something, you're thinking of the framework, the blueprints, the architecture of something, which is very different from studying engineering, because engineering ultimately is you are optimizing a product or a system. You have key parameters, and you're really going, you focus on these parameters, or you're tweaking them in order to get an output that is better than the previous output. And there's this element of comparison, and which is amazing. I think a lot of great innovations come from engineering, and this framework of, looking at physics, looking at the truth of the truths of the universe. So like physics, looking at mathematics, so very like logical systems that have worked and that prove that you can repeat and redo. And we can dive into the scientific method, and that's some things that great labs do really well, like at MIT, like following, basically having observations on a phenomenon, and then having measurements of those observations, and then from those measurements you can analyze, test, repeat, and then find correlations or find interesting kind of trends, like statistics from there, and then extrapolate a conclusion and having results, sharing this body of knowledge to others, and then you repeat, and then you're contributing, and it expands from there, which is amazing. Design, on the other hand, is kind of saying, what if we did something different? It's a very cowboy way to see things or to analyze things. It's to kind of say like, hey, or like a very rebellious way to see things, which I personally really love. I think it's really refreshing. And I think that's why it gets a lot of critiques or a lot of backlash, because, ultimately what you're doing is you're saying to yourself, okay, what if we did this differently? What if this was connected to this, and then we went with this? And so maybe it completely flops and it completely fails, but it's the experimental approach of questioning everything and reframing every question. Like, for example, in engineering, the question will usually come from... The main question will usually be very narrow. They will be very specific. It will be like, what if we replace this with this? What would the outcome be from afterwards? In design, it would kind of be like, what if we just is that even the right thing to do in the first place? What if we did something completely different? What if we replaced and we took something from like another field, like anthropology? Or what if we studied people instead of looking at and interviewing them and seeing what they actually think about the product, instead of just assuming that the product will be better if we just optimize it? So in design, I think there's an interesting approach of talking to or looking at things from the outside, like talking to people from different fields, looking at other subjects, being inspired by nature, being inspired by like just, the most random things, and then seeing where that leads to. And then I think ultimately design on its own is pretty useless, because we would just be spiraling down and we'd just be like referencing ourselves and just create work that would just be very self-referential, and then we'd just be talking to ourselves, which is something designers do a lot, and I can critique that as well. But I think the power of design comes when you collaborate with other people from different fields. When the designer collaborates with an engineer and with an artist and with a biologist and with science, and all of these different people, when they come together, and then the designer's role is to basically take all of these ideas and kind of map them together and find the correlations, the links, and then I think from there that's where innovation can really come to fruition. I think that's where really good ideas come out of, is when you stop thinking in silos and thinking, oh, this is a mechanical engineering problem, this is a physics problem, this is a mathematical problem. When you stop thinking like that and you say to yourself, first of all, is this even a problem? Why is that a problem? Then you kind of ask yourself why, and then why, and why, and you kind of peel back the layers, and you realize that, oh, it is way more complex than what I thought initially. And sorry if this is being very, for many people that might sound very wishy-washy. I like to keep things very general as a habit, like very big picture. That's just how I communicate. But if you really think about it, if we really, like, all of the great innovations or all the great ideas have been discovered by many people before you. And that's why science and knowledge is just fast. It's it's infinite. People, like, there are so many PhDs and incredible people. If you talk to them and you interview them, or just ask them a question like, oh, what are you researching? They will tell you, like, they're researching the most specific, detailed, like the most niche research that might not ever apply to 99% of the population, but by just having that contribution, you're pushing, like, let's say, the knowledge, the body of knowledge in physics, or you're adding 0.01% of scientific body of knowledge for physics or mathematics or that or this, which is great. But in order to tackle really complex issues, I think a lot of cross-hybridization needs to happen, where different fields communicate to each other. I think that's something that MIT does really well. And it all falls under the principle of cross-disciplinary, interdisciplinary, like, studies, and having all these different departments working together. The Media Lab, for example, does a really good job at doing that. And just so many departments. The nice thing about MIT is it's a very flat hierarchy or kind of system where, like, anybody from any department can collaborate if they have an idea for something. So it's all this to say, design, one of the strengths of it is this idea to think larger, like big picture, and to question everything. And it's very radical. But when you're designing, you're rethinking, you're reshaping. Everything around us is designed. I think people think design is usually mostly aesthetics, and aesthetics is a part of design. And I'm not going to go into detail, but it's a component, because why would you not want to have beautiful things around you? Do you want to live in a non-beautiful world? I mean, this is a very philosophical question, but the notion of aesthetics is quite important for humans, I think. Obviously, there's also the practical nature of things. Things have to work. Things have to be efficient. Things cannot. The friction is a very, people don't enjoy friction. We're trying to limit the frictions in our life in order to attain abundance or peace or happiness or pleasure. Like, any sort of friction or barrier is just not enjoyable. So efficiency, aesthetics, and then problem solving, I think, is a big thing, because there's problems everywhere around us. That's why I think you can also apply design thinking to your own life. If there's something, not to go into too much of, like, this self-development, self-help stuff, but let's say you want to work out more, or you want to be more in better shape. One way to go about it is to just start going to the gym and just telling yourself, I will go to the gym tomorrow or today, and then tomorrow, and then the next day. You can tell yourself that, but the chances are you'll probably stop after a few days. And why is that? It's because it's a habit. And so a habit takes a lot of time, and then the more you do it, the more it becomes natural. But if you really look at what a habit is, it's trigger, and then you do the action, and then you get a reward, and then it becomes a feedback loop. And so that system, looking at a habit this way is kind of looking at it as a system. And then you can be you can kind of see it and be like, hey, is there a way for me to design my life in a way that like this system becomes more integrated with my life? Maybe it's about, preparing my workout clothes and putting in my bag. So during the day, I have my workout clothes, I can go to the gym. Maybe it's about saying like, hey, I hate working out, but I really love this song really pumps me up and makes me want to move. Maybe the trigger is I need to listen to that song right before working out to pump me up, and then I'm going. And then the more you do that, you're trying to find things like that are fun and that help you to strive for your goals. And so by doing that, you are designing your life. You're designing like a part of your life. You're curating it. Another way to say design is curating it or framing it, or I think curating is the best word to go about it. But yeah, and then the engineering part will be, I want to improve on this specific metric. I want to get like a better bench press. How do I do that? The food I eat, I notice that like I gain more energy. I have more energy if I eat these certain foods, and so you're kind of optimizing for these things. But as a whole, I think it's more about designing the framework. It's about looking at the big picture and saying like, okay, this is a blueprint that I will follow, and I might have to iterate it, which is normal. We're all trying to make these systems better. We're all trying to learn, and you'll probably fail, and you'll probably, try again, and it's normal. We're all trying to do our best, but I think the striving for it is really something that is the key. That's all we really want to do. So that's that's a bit like what I'm doing, or the kind of thoughts I have on design at the moment. And there's a lot more, but that's really something I learned this year is design is a lot more than what I thought it was before. Another thing I wanted to talk about is the idea of imposter syndrome. The fact that I'm even doing this video, I have immense imposter syndrome right now, because I feel like I'm a fraud. Like I've never done a video. I never talked to a camera like this on my own. I'm still trying to frame my mind, or to kind of practice speaking so naturally. I mean, I've done this like many times. Like a big chunk of architecture school is to present ideas and your designs, your projects to a jury, to a critique, and getting critiqued on it, and getting feedback, and having this kind of like back and forth, which is one of the reasons why I thought maybe I should do this, because I've been doing it for so long in the real world, that why not just do it on my own and see what happens. But I still have imposter syndrome, and I think from the conversations I've been having with people, especially at MIT and like other Ivy Leagues like Harvard and really good universities, is that people get an imposter syndrome even after getting in the programs or the schools, and it never really leaves you. I think deep down we all feel like we're not worthy enough, or we're not qualified enough. Even before coming, obviously, I felt like there's no way I could get in. It was like a lottery ticket. I was like, okay, let's apply and see if I get in. So I had even more imposter syndrome before. And people will always tell you like, oh, you gotta get qualified. You have to have a certification to do this. You need to have your license. You have to do this. You have to take a course. You need to. And there's truth to that. You do need to somehow be competent in the things you do, or the things you set out to do for your career, for work, or, But I think the realization I've had this year is that we all have something we are inherently good at. And I think you don't have to look that far ahead. You can just think of like your core memories during childhood, or when you were a teenager, or just like the things you would do in your free time and that you maybe still do in your free time, or the things that are so easy to you that for others, they just look at it and think, wow, that's amazing. Like, how do you do that? And you almost feel like it's nothing. But then for others, it's very difficult. But for you, it's easy. Those kinds of things are, I think, the things you should be like honing in on. Like the idea of like following your passion or following, like finding your passion, I don't really agree with. Because what that usually, or from my experience, what happens is that you're trying to find it all the time. You're just searching for different things, which is okay. If you're someone like me who has like very diverse interests, I think it's fine. You do learn a lot and you just get curious about everything. But I think the better advice would just be to do things you're really good at and to like double down on that. And the reason for that is because you can be, there's the saying like the becoming a jack of all trades or a master of none. This I think holds true. Although I would argue that like there is a lot of there's a lot of benefits of becoming a generalist. You think more globally and more holistically, and that is a huge asset for any team or any organization. But apart from that, I think if one realization I had is that, one cannot stop but think, okay, when you're in school, what am I going to do after graduation? And a few things usually ends up happening. I'm talking for MIT students or just university students. I'd either do a PhD and just focus in on that as like my core career. The other thing is I get a job and join a company, small startup or a big corporation, or I do my own thing, whether if it's a startup or if I'm a freelancer or an entrepreneur of some sort, and I just do my own thing. So those are usually the things, like the options you have, But the commonality between all these things is that you have a skill set that you're providing to an organization or to other people. Like it's a value-based economy where you're sharing some form of value, whether it's through a product or a service or information of some sort. Like you're sharing something, but fundamentally it will be something you are doing, hopefully. And so I think that is why you really want to hone in on the things you are good at, rather than just doing things that you think make a lot of money or you think you should be doing because that's what society is asking of people to do. Because you will be doing that thing like all the time. And so if you do something you're good at, you enjoy doing it. So already you're solving that issue of like, doing something you like, so that helps. But it will just help you in the long term. Like I think that's the best advice I would give myself is for young David who's like struggling an early undergrad and not knowing what to do. I would just tell him like, hey, really think like when I was a kid, my main thing was drawing. I was just sketching like crazy all the time. And it was sketching mangas, I was sketching people, I was just replicating comic books. And I read a lot of graphic novels and comic books. Barely read anything, which is very different to now, which I love reading. But anyways, I was just like consuming visual content like crazy, which made me super in tune with like how things look like at a visual level. It almost became like second nature to just, and I would always observe things. Like if I was in the car, on the passenger seat, I would just look outside the whole time and really observe things and for what they were. So I was practicing at a young age without even knowing, because that was the thing I was curious about. just observing things. And that translated, and I only realized that like a few months ago, when I was just like looking back at like the things I'm doing now, because I've always a habit I have is to always look for the next thing. Like, I want to do this, I want to do that. Like, I've always felt like the thing I'm doing is not a big deal. You know, this like, it's easy, like, or not easy. It's just like, it's not a big deal. I want to do something bigger. I was looking at scientists, like, wow, the scientists, like, they're doing important work. They're doing, you know, groundbreaking stuff. I want to be an innovator. I want to do this. But then I realized, like, I'm not good at math. My biology sucks. Like, I used to do physiology, and then I dropped out of that because after a year, because I was so bad at memorizing. Like, I have really bad memory. So like, you know, I was like going against my nature. And so by embracing your strengths and your weaknesses, you will go so much further than if you try to compensate or to get better at things you're not really good at. Not to say that you should give up on the things you're not good at. I think it's good to improve on these skills. But if you think of like a video game character, it's like, with the limited time you have, you probably want to max out on the things you're good at if you want to have more leverage. So for me, it was visual stuff, and then it translated to design and more artistic creation, like the stuff, and the ability to just like lay things out and create presentations and storytelling and connecting different ideas together. And anything visual based for me, like visual storytelling, was a huge thing, something that was easy for me. And to this day, everything I do, I try to do it in a visual way. So the tools I'm using are like Miro boards, InDesign decks, like all these design tools. I'm constantly trying to frame ideas into diagrams or visuals, just because that's how I learn the most. But then for you, it could be you write since you were young, like, and you're a great writer, and you've been having a journal, and you write notes, and you love changing the words to make it rhyme or to make it sound a different way or to evoke a different emotion. I would say, like, hone in on that. Just like, if you had good grades in English class, just go in on English or on writing. Don't try to do something else. That will really pay off in the long term. If you're good in mathematics, if you're good with numbers, hone in on that, you know, don't be ashamed of it. And then like share that specific knowledge with others. And you don't need permission for that. Like nowadays, like you have the internet, you have so many great platforms, that can be used for like, you know, in a negative way. If you're like doom scrolling, or if you're consuming like stupid content and you're wasting your time on it, but it can also be used in a very productive way where you're like sharing the things you love and like being creative and being someone who just like shares and creates things that they generally enjoy doing, things they're curious about and they want to learn about, and that becomes your vehicle, your medium to others. So yeah, that's kind of another realization I've had. And then on the last note, because I'm realizing this video is kind of long, but hey, I like long form content. The kind of stuff I consume is usually like podcasts, and so maybe this might turn into a podcast. I don't know. If you guys like this, let me know. Maybe I'll do like longer form. But the last thing I want to say is, people are everything, and it sounds very cheesy, but it really is. I think the main reason I decided to go at MIT to study, which by the way was not, you know, for people it's like, oh, like, you know, like it was like planned, and like obviously it's easy for you to say you're at MIT now, but honestly, like I was pretty good. Like I was working before coming here. I was doing remote work. I was traveling. Like I could have just stayed in that company and just continued working and traveling and, you know, climbed the corporate ladder. But the reason I really wanted to come here apart from being an MIT student, is to be part of this community of the MIT or the Cambridge, Boston, Harvard community. Because for me, it was like, I just want to talk to as many people or to get to know as many smart people who I resonate with, and be in the same room as them, the same classroom, the same city, go for coffee, have talks with them, and pick their brains on like certain subjects. And that for me has been like the highlights of my 6 months here. Is there's a saying where like, we're not saying that some people say like one way to really change the direction of your life is to change where you live, like the city where you live. And it's very true. Like the location you are living in and working in or spending most of your time in has huge impacts on where your life will be in the future, because of that network effect of how like we work as humans. But if there's one thing I would say is, you know, amidst of all the hustle culture you hear online of like monk mode, just stay inside, do your thing, no distraction, no social media, cut all ties, don't go to parties, don't go to this, just stay inside and do your thing and don't get distracted. That's complete bullshit. Like, that's not, like, you should not be doing that. I've tried doing that. And sometimes you do need to do that because, let's say there's a deadline and like for a week, you just have no time because you've been procrastinating and you have to like get this work done. That's fine. But if you treat this as like your normal way of living, you will be so disconnected with the people around you. You're literally missing out on living as a human being. And so the best thing I would recommend is like wherever you are, if you're in a big city, if you're in a suburb, if you're in the countryside, or if you're, you know, in a place where you don't really resonate with people, is I would say like make an effort to either, if you can't fly to that place you want to go or travel to that place, is to connect with individuals either online, meet up with them, have discussions over the phone, or any form of like real verbal communication, which is not texting, but like face to face, even if it's video calls, or having that human interaction is so key. It will give you more ideas. You will be more inspired. You will create a community of people around you. Those connections are very important, like friendships. It will help your mental state. It will it will give you ideas, and it will help you learn a lot more. I think ultimately I've learned more from people, because when you're discussing ideas and when you're with people, like everybody has their own unique twist to things, their own unique perspectives that you only really understand by either asking them or having them talk about it, or by observation. If you can see what they're doing, if you're in the same room and there's things they cannot describe because it is so natural to them, but you look at what they do and you see the way in which they do it, you see how they do it, like the methods and the style and how they treat this form of working or of living. And those little habits you just pick up. You pick up things from people just by observing what they do. But then if you go into conversations with them and you ask them questions and really like ask people questions, and it can be very bold. It could be like, so like, what's your morning routine? Like what food do you eat in the morning? Do you have breakfast? Like I don't have breakfast. I only start eating at noon. And some people disagree, some people do it, like, but then, you know, you learn a lot from just asking them their perspectives on things. I think ultimately you will learn a lot about yourself, about the things you want, the things you don't want, by just asking more questions and learning more. And so yeah, it's not about the fancy courses. MIT has a lot of interesting, computer science, like AI courses. You can learn about this, about that. There's also a lot of making courses where you can make stuff with your hands, maker spaces or labs. And there's so many cool projects. It feels like you're like a kid in a candy store, honestly. I was burnt out because of that, because it's like overwhelming. There's always new projects like popping in and out, and you can always work on that. And not to say that it's not valuable. For sure it's valuable. But I would say focus on one thing. But really, it's the people. Like without the people, it would just be meaningless. So yeah, that's what I've gained from 6 months here. There's a lot more stuff on the list, but I think for now I will end this video. I think I'm trying to keep some of the videos. I'm thinking of doing more of these, just forcing me to keep it as a habit. But you can expect a lot of, things around design, spirituality, philosophy, psychology, how to better yourself as a human, be a better person, working on your strengths, on your weaknesses, healthy habits, meditation, that kind of stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I'll just I'll keep posting and we'll see from there. So on this note, I'd say take care and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.